I'm not gonna lie, when our boy here was looking at the photos he took to put on his resume, I was like, wow, he cleaned up nice, he's looking professional, and to see him just talk down on himself, I'm like, it's completely understandable given the lack of self-esteem, but the boy's really pushing himself forward. I mean, as pretty much all the characters are. Up until the closing moments of this episode, I really thought episode 12 would be a pretty simple and maybe just epilogue style situation. Maybe the princess would actually come back surprisingly. And while yes, it was definitely explosive, yes, I was not expecting someone to have a kaiju inside of them, because when they're saying there's no traces of kaiju anywhere, I mean, I'm willing to believe the people who look down in the dumps, and they're not just doing that because others are looking at them. They seemingly are admitting to themselves that it's game over and that Gamma beat them. So watching an episode that on the visual directing side isn't anything truly spectacular, there was plenty of shots that were pretty lackluster, the content itself was a major step forward for all the characters. Gamma unfortunately didn't get his closing moment so far to something that would really make him happy. It's painful enough you come back from the grave just assuming that your princess will be there with you. The fact that your enemies are the only ones who came back, it's a pretty hard pill to swallow. But then when you have Yomogi's side, I mean, this boy is saying, even if we're not fighting kaiju, I still want to stick by you. Would you go out with me? Then you have to get the cock block in here. I mean, from literally someone who ran away from school not wanting to go to it, even if she didn't get through those gates, she was willing to put a step forward, and over time, many weeks, she'll probably eventually reach the school doors, to someone actually trying to get a job and get out of his mother's bedroom, basically. All the characters are making these giant steps forward, and in a lot of ways, it's wrapping up. You're saying, okay, similar to Gridman's story, Dynazenon will truly conclude with episode 12, but I still feel like there's going to be a third anime, and Night, of course, will be there as well. And I think if they do produce a third series, I hope they kind of blend both Gridman and Dynazenon. Gridman, to me, I think did a really good job with its antagonist story and why they were acting in a certain way, where I think Dynazenon excels with its protagonist, giving great personal stories, genuine human interaction. But I do have to say, as much as I do like the antagonist in Dynazenon, I do feel like sometimes when I look at their motives and why they're doing it, I don't feel as connected as I did in, say, Gridman. Just a personal preference to me, so I think if they did do a third series, if they blended how they handled antagonists in the first anime and how they handled protagonists in the second, combine that into one, and once again refining their animation, which just got better since Gridman, I think we'll definitely have a recipe for a masterpiece in the tokusatsu style genre. Now, this episode ended explosively. I mean, we were building up to the goodbyes, and we see a near-death experience for Gamma. I mean, it pretty much is saying as such, Gamma's gonna die in episode 12. I don't see any way around it. He has a human body, and I think it would be kind of sweet if maybe, and now this is just a prediction, and I love it to come true. We know how Gridman ended with that live-action shot, right? What if we have a similar situation that maybe Gamma ends up dead, but he gets to reincarnate again, and we have a live-action scene where Gamma gets to reunite with the princess? Wouldn't that be a great ending for the show? It'd be sad, but it'd also be hopeful for a character like him, while also having closing moments, Hsieh going to school, someone actually getting a job after literally being otaku, someone who was a shut-in all his life, to also just a great couple who are supporting each other. Hey, I have a dude who's going to be my dad. I don't really know him. He's a nice guy, but I don't really like him all that much. Hey, my parents, never really thought I would ever go visit my sister's grave, right? There's just all these nice connections brewing while also having another great fight in the back burner. I was actually going to be fine if there wasn't going to be any more action, mainly because last week and the idea of being trapped in the past was a perfectly acceptable endgame battle. Sure, we had 2 episodes left to go, but I mean, it would have been fine to me if they didn't throw in another objective. But I think by throwing in that kind of kaiju trapped inside itself, hopefully they'll explore a bit more with the antagonist and seeing why they're just trying to bring about the destruction other than wanting to, which it works, but I mean, comparing how Gridman went about it, I think is a bit more interesting for me. Either way though, I mean, the personal stories on the main character sides and having fan favorites return like Auntie, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, right? Dynazenon's definitely been a roller coaster of emotions, and it's good to see that once again, in a short amount of time, the main characters in a show like this that is as packed as this are getting good character arcs that begin, they have a nice middle portion with some struggles, to clearly ending with a bang. Gamma dying seems all but likely. I don't see how he gets out of that one. But in terms of, ridding the world of kaiju, that seems like once again another likely scenario. And I hope the ending for this one will be as memorable as, say, the ending for Gridman, because it was such a refreshing and unique, and you would think on paper it would never work, but seeing it in execution, it was absolutely flawless. And like I previously mentioned, the directing in this episode was very odd. They're literally, the first shot in this episode, they hold on to this frame that I get if you don't have time to animate and you basically just have to hold on to a sloppy frame, totally get it. But like some of the directing choices, like instead of having the characters, even if they're not drawn all that well in the middle of the screen, they have it nearly clipping off the top as you're just looking at pavement as they're talking. And there's just so many times where it was just like a lot of still frames, and you could tell that because of last week's episode and because of next week's episode, all the time and resources were put in that, so a lot of the dialogue had to be a little underwhelming. I don't say, oh man, the studio's shit or anything like that, no. I understand how strenuous the anime industry is, but as a consumer watching, I do have to point out the things that I did find to be a little lackluster, but the things that were great, the fight towards the end and some of the more close-up emotional monologue shots, were really well done. Hopefully next week we'll be able to stick the landing similar to how last week and its incredible trapped in the past, I mean, granted it was one man's kind of vision, but still, this show has looked good in its big scenes more times than not, so I think next week will go with a bang. If we do really look though at the past like 2 or 3 battles, compared to how the first half of this anime, they almost use the exact same soundtracks in the epic fights, but the past few have been vastly different and experimental is probably the best way. I am really hoping, given the fact that this is such a vastly different kaiju battle, I mean, last week was vastly different, don't get me wrong, but this one's even more so because of the unexpected nature. I really hope they bust out either one of, if not the best soundtracks that we've heard, either for Dynazenon or maybe even between both Gridman and Dynazenon, because this feels to me like a battle that needs to go all out both on the visual department, which I'm pretty confident on, but also the soundtrack, because I remember, I mean, the intro to Dynazenon, it really got me feeling giddy like a kid on Saturday morning, and it's remained to be able to do so fairly consistent, but I feel like similar to the first time you hear the main theme or, you know, the transformation music, you need to equally do so with something fresh and distinct for its final battle. And if I'm remembering correctly, Gridman did that pretty damn well, so I'm hoping Dynazenon will do it as well. I totally expect something unexpected with maybe a new form of transformation, maybe Gridman itself will drop in. I don't know, I'm expecting something to really knock our socks off, because we're seeing that the current transformation doesn't look like it's cutting it, so something else has to happen in very tokusatsu fashion, and honestly, Gridman coming in seems like the only way I could think of, but maybe there would be something else. Maybe Gamma will have a secret weapon himself, unleash a kaiju from his own body. I don't know, but we'll be interested to see where they're going to take it. Given how Gridman ended, I don't see Dynazenon messing up the landing in any way, both in the written and visual directing department. But great stuff, emotional, feels like we're getting closure, while also getting one big epic finale to wrap it all up. I may have some issues here and there, but Dynazenon to me is even better than Gridman, and if you watch my reviews for Gridman, you know how much I love that show. Let me know your thoughts and feelings though down below. Where do you think the final episode will go? Do you like my idea for the ending for Gamma's character, or do you think it's going to go vastly different to surprise us? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share, support, and hit that subscribe button if you're happy new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.